And welcome back to the Soar Higher podcast, a show for leaders by leaders that's focused on providing business and career advice, tools, and resources to help people achieve higher levels of success. I am your host, Coach Jason Ballard, and it's a real honor and privilege to be with you again today. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Today, we have an excellent show lined up for you. We have a guest on the show that is an expert CPA, an expert at tax credits and helping business owners out there achieve really wonderful things by helping them get the things that they deserve, they qualify for, and the things they don't even really know exist out there. Today, we have the honor and privilege of having Catherine Tindall on the show. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jason. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you have such an amazing background, kind of a different background than a traditional CPA. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. Tell us a little bit about you, Catherine. Tell us about your firm and types of things you guys are doing.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a CPA. I'm one of the partners at Dominion Enterprise Services. We're a specialty CPA firm. We do a lot of work right now with some COVID tax credits that are still available. And then also we do, strategic income tax planning for a certain number of clients. So we kind of have a mix. But that's a little bit about my practice. We're boutique and we work with clients all over the country.
All over the country, huh? How about out of country?
Well, for tax credits, it's usually just for domestic organizations.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Very exciting. Well, how did you get into this? You're a very bright young lady, and not everybody understands what a CPA does. Not everybody understands the details that they get into. How did you get into this field? What led you to say, today I'm going to get up and be a CPA?
Well, I originally wanted to be in medicine when I was in school. And the more I talked to people in the field, I realized that my desire to want to serve people and help people wasn't going to go the best, just in that industry in general. So I ended up, my parents actually had a small tax practice when I was growing up, and they nudged me to just take an accounting course with one of my electives. And so I obliged and just totally fell in love with it and realized, there's a unique opportunity in tax and accounting, specifically in public accounting and tax work, to really work with people in a way that you're actually helping them with something that they could not do themselves, that it's a high trust relationship, and that, these kinds of relationships last for years and years when it comes to income tax situations. You get to know people. And I always thought it was funny with them that, when you work with people in their income tax situation, because of the way the US code is, it touches so much of people's lives. It's like you're the professional that knows the most about people. So, like, if there's a marriage, if there's a divorce, if there's a new baby, if somebody's going to college, where you donate your money to, like, all of those things kind of touch the CPA relationship. So,
Yeah.
I thought it was a good outlet for that. So that's in general how I got into it. And then, a couple of years ago, I founded this firm because I wanted to do things a little differently than how I'd seen them done at other firms that I'd worked for. And so we had a focus on, strategic income tax planning. So not just filing forms. And then when COVID struck and we started to see our clients getting affected by the pandemic, and then just the different aid programs that were out there, we started to pursue really becoming excellent at some of those aid programs. And so because there's still some available now from the pandemic, that's a lot of the work we do now, and work we do for other CPA firms is helping their clients with those.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. And it's complicated. I'm, as a business owner myself, as a business coach, it helps a lot of the same people that you help. I will tell you that people just don't they're lost in it, especially
Yeah.
through the COVID stuff. One day we're doing this and another day we're doing something different, and all the tax extensions and deadlines and shifts and twists and turns and PPP, and it's gone
Yes.
all over the map. And I think with good intentions to try to help people and move the economy, back in a forward direction and recover from a horrible pandemic. But man, what a complicated mess. What kind of things are you seeing and experiencing out there that are some trends amongst your customers that you're working with?
Yeah, I'd say the big piece of it is, unlike with the PPP, where those programs are closed and kind of you're stuck with whatever you got, if you missed it
Right.
and you could have done it, too bad, the money's gone. The program that I work on, which is called the Employee Retention Credit, it's still available because it was written by Congress as a tax credit. And so, like, if you file a tax return where you didn't claim enough deductions, you can go back and amend and get them. Tax credits work the same way. So we're able to go backwards and still claim the credits, which come back now because it's retroactive. They come back as checks in the mail. So that's the work that I do for clients. And so for a lot of people who are affected by PPP or by the pandemic and got PPP are still can be eligible for this program. And it's it can be pretty amazing, the results even a small company can get depending on kind of what they went through during the pandemic. But that's the major trend I see. A lot of business owners don't pursue it because they either, have an accountant who's not as proactive with them, or are just being. There's a lot of like scammy people that are in the space right now that are pushing these credits that aren't tax professionals, and so those two factors have had a. I've seen a lot of business owners like walk away from this program without having a proper assessment done. But
Yeah.
it's can be fantastic for businesses. And I've had people on the phone in tears with me, like when we kind of get through the whole process with what they qualified for. So that's kind of the big missed opportunity I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have similar conversations with folks too. This is the time of year where we do end of year reviews and,
Hmm.
what went well in 2022, what didn't go well, what are the lessons learned, what do we need to carry forward, what do we not need to carry forward? And a lot of this stuff you're talking about, it's I kind of chalk it up to kind of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
They're unknowns, they're kind of mystery, and there's a lot of stuff going on in politics in the world today that people are shying away from, and a lot of the political tension that's going on. And so a lot of stuff, government people that perceive and through the lens of government oriented, they're kind of just, yeah, I'm tired of hearing, I don't want to deal with that, that's just red tape, that's just more bull stuff, bull to deal with. And they just don't know what they don't know, and there's just a lot of unknowns, right?
Hmm.
There's just
Yep.
people don't know what they don't know. But as you said, there's just a lot of great things out there that help businesses and business leaders, in so many ways. You talked about scammers. I want to kind of touch on that real quick. Oh my gosh, every time there's a storm, you
Yeah.
get 15 roofers from all over God's green earth knocking on your door wanting to replace your roof, right?
Hmm.
I see the same thing with the employee retention program. I
Yes.
get calls, I get emails and text messages from people I've never even heard of saying, "Yes, I qualify. Let's make it happen today." They're all scammers. How do you differentiate the scammers and the people trying to, take advantage of people versus,
Yeah.
the reality of what you're doing and the value you're providing, and what's real? What's
Yeah.
the difference? How do you?
Yeah, and I'd say, anybody who's listening to this, if you want to deep dive into this, we have a PDF on our website that's you can click to get it. It's the top 5 mistakes I see business owners make with the program, and one of the things that we talk about is that because the IRS just put a warning out like 2 weeks ago. Everybody watch out for these, third party providers that are peddling these erroneous credits, because it's just bad. And I'm even seeing people in this space because we're starting to deal with IRS resolution work for claims that were done incorrectly. I'm seeing people who have filed for a lot of claims, like they advertise on their website that they've done, millions and millions of dollars of claims, and I'm looking at their work and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a mess. It's funny. A lot of practitioners talk to me and they're like, well, the ERC program's only going to be for a couple of years. What are you going to do after that? And I'm like, I'm going to be doing IRS resolution work probably for the rest of my life from this program because it's just so bad. So I would say my top tip to a business owner that's thinking about doing this program, the first piece you got to watch out for is If your accountant doesn't do a lot of these, you want to be assessed by a tax practitioner, so like a CPA or somebody who has a tax practice that existed before the pandemic, who does this kind of work to get a real assessment done. Because if your accountant doesn't do a lot of these, it's a very idiosyncratic program, and so there's different ways you can qualify for it, and they might not be aware of how the program really works, and so they could preemptively tell you you don't qualify without really looking into it. And I would just say, for most business owners, if you have more than 5 employees, you really want to make sure somebody's done a real assessment of you, and they'll need there's two basic things that they'll need to that you'll know that they've done it right. The first is that they have quarterly financial statements for you, because it's a quarterly test. And then the second piece is that they've had a very specific conversation with you about how the government interacted with you during the pandemic, and if you were subject to any government orders that force you to modify your operations. That conversation. So if
Wow.
they haven't had those two very specific things, you haven't been assessed. Um, but going back to the scammers piece of it, basically the main thing I tell people is, number one, you want to have your CPA heavily involved in this process with you, because there's work they will have to do. It requires amended income tax returns. So you're going to have to work with your tax professional to get this credit done correctly. And they're going to be a pretty good bellwether of whether or not the person you're dealing with is legitimate, because they'll be able to tell from the conversations, does this person know what they're talking about? Are you key one that I usually see for people is, are you talking to a salesperson or are you talking to a tax professional? Like, you'll
Oh,
very quickly
nice. Nice.
feel the difference there, right? So if you're talking to a
Yep.
salesperson, they're trying to sell you something, versus a tax professional, it's like seeing a doctor. Like, I have a duty of care to anyone that I work with. I have a fiduciary relationship with my clients, and so I often have people where they'll come to me for this kind of work, and I say, you know what, you're a very simple case. I know who your payroll provider is. I know your payroll provider does these, and they'll be less expensive than me, so you should go to them. Or, um, you know, your a complex case. You need, we need to get our attorney involved and have more work done. So I'd say that's the place to start. You want to be working with a tax pro, and you'll know when you talk to them on the phone. Am I talking to a salesperson? Am I talking to a tax professional? And then I would go on the company website and look up, what they do. Are they a tax firm? Is that what they do? Or are you talking to a marketing company?
Hmm.
Who's the president of the company? Is it a marketing executive, or is it a tax professional? Like, what kind of company are you dealing with? What kind of percentage of the population of their employees are tax professionals versus salespeople, right? If you go on their LinkedIn company
Hmm.
page and it's all salespeople and there's not a single tax professional, that's kind of suspicious. Things like that. So I think that's the easiest way to kind of tell the difference between the real people and the scammers. Also, if you go on their website, if they don't have a lot of resources about the intricacies of the credit or talking about it, or
Right.
there's a face to the company, like that there's an actual person, that you can get more information about the credit, I'd be suspicious of that as well. So you want to work with, and don't be convinced by a really flash happy, fancy website. Also, don't be convinced by happy client testimonials, because those the IRS hasn't started auditing these yet. So you've got a lot of people who could think they've had a good job done that they haven't. So those are kind of
Yep.
my, big tips, I think.
No, those are excellent. Those are really, really good. I think the audience and the general folks out there will really get a lot of value from that. Thank you for sharing that. And bottom line is, it's like with anything. People, there's all kind of people out there that can help you, scam you, do whatever for you, but do your due diligence. Talk to people, do your research. And anybody can put up a flashy little website. Anybody
Yes.
can say what they want to say and put testimonials out there that may or may not even be true. A lot of people out there put stuff up, I've noticed, and they're not even, you can pay people to give you Google reviews, right? They're not
Yep.
even legitimate customers. So
Yep.
it's hard to tell, but I think if you follow Christine's advice here, I think you'll be in good hands. I want to dig in a little bit here. So a CPA firm that one of the things that I noticed with you guys is you are specialty, right? You're not a catch-all, CPA firm that does everything for everybody. You're very specialized in a
Yeah.
very niche area. Talk to us about the things you specialize in that you are, like, no kidding, experts in, and talk to us a little bit more about that. Why did you decide to specialize versus being more general, et cetera?
I think for us, kind of the general principle of it was one of the things that I saw in other CPA firms that I disliked, was that generalist mentality. And I think most, most professional services, and this is just kind of talking in general about,
Yeah,
observations with business, professional services try to do that approach of anybody that comes in, you try to serve them the best, you try to help them however you can. And what it makes for is you end up with this cloud of clients that you're kind of half serving because you haven't really built the systems and processes and staff, knowledge acumen to really serve those people well. And so they end up just kind of being half served, and they're not really getting the best from you. So that in general, I think, was a principle that we had when we started the firm. And that's why, I pivoted quickly to, we don't do any audit work. We don't do payroll. There's a lot of things that we don't do, because the things that we do, like the strategic income tax planning, or especially with like the employee retention credit,
yeah,
certain things, it's like you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. If you're going to do some of it, you really have to be an expert in it. And I
yep,
think especially for tax work, that's kind of the nature of the beast, especially for tax credits. But that's why we specialize. And that's why in general, whenever I talk to other business owners, I think it's just a good, as much as you can do it and niche down and have a
yep,
really specific thing that you're just, the best at, it makes it so much easier for you to deliver services efficiently. It makes it easier to focus on like how to really make that the best for your clients. Um, and then also, it's just a really clean process for them, but it's a really clean process for you because you're dealing with, similar situations. You're not trying to be everything for everyone. And
yep.
that was a decision I made really early on in the practice. And we've definitely seen the fruit from that.
Yeah. As a business coach, I see this all the time. People that are generalist in technology or finance or whatever field that may be, and they try to serve too many people, afraid to say
Yeah.
no to somebody. They really have the most trouble scaling their business
Yes.
because they get spread too thin and they can't do a really good job. So their focus is on volume versus quality, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, there's an old saying, the riches are in the niches, right?
Yeah. Isn't that a Tony
And
Robbins quote, or who
I
is
it,
that?
it, it might be it's John Jim Rom, or one of
Yeah.
those guys, Zig Ziglar. It's one of those guys
Yeah.
for
One of those
sure.
guys. Yeah. No, I know that one.
But it's true. It really is
Hmm.
true. The folks that have really gone deeper into their craft and really specialized tend to be able to grow and scale much easier and faster than those that want to serve everything to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
You see that all the time. And so let's talk about you. You really have lasered in. I don't know. I know quite a few CPAs, but I don't know anybody that's truly specialized in the area that you have decided to specialize in, which I think is amazing. Talk to us about this retention credit. Who qualifies for it, and
Hmm.
what are the criteria? If I'm a business owner, how do I know whether this is right for us? If we should
Yeah.
pursue this, is this worth our time? Walk us through that. Help us understand that, so folks out there listening, like, hey, that sounds like me. I
Hmm.
should talk to somebody like Catherine.
Yeah. So I would say, the 30,000 foot view, is if you're a business owner and you have more than 5 employees during the pandemic, so that's tax years 20 and 21, you should have a formal assessment done. It's a conversation you should have with your tax professional if they haven't already talked to you about this. Um, the credit itself, it's up to $26,000 per employee. Most businesses do not qualify for that much, just as a
Hmm.
caveat, but that is the upper cap of it. So you can imagine, if you can qualify for a good chunk of that, that adds up really quick, even at a small team size. Um, so how you know that you might be eligible for it, there's basically two main pathways that most businesses fall into for this program. Um, like I mentioned, you have to have employees. It's a per employee type credit. So you have to have had W-2 employees during tax years 20 and 21. And then the main pieces that we look for, the first one, I think, that I already mentioned is there's a gross revenues test. So if you have any quarterly revenue discrepancies is usually how I like to describe it, instead of giving
Hmm.
percentages and trying to have people self-assess for it. If you have uneven revenues during 2019 through Q3 of 2021, you'll want to have somebody actually run your numbers and look at it. And that includes things where even if you had more revenue year over year, if you had revenue bunching, that can also, potentially trigger the eligibility as well. Because for a lot of the people that I work with, they might have done better year over year, but a contractor where the permit office was closed and then everything was backed up and then supplies were delayed, all their revenues, kind of bunched in one quarter when they were finally able to bill out on their jobs. And so that can, things like that can trigger eligibility. So that's, the first pathway. The second pathway is that, and it sounds very grayscale when I explain it, but it's not when you look at the actual tests that we have to do for the eligibility. But if the government interfered with your operations in a way that was
Hmm.
significant, and there's statutory definitions of all this and tests and how you look things up, et cetera. But if you felt, if your business was impacted by government orders, that will also be a main pathway for eligibility. And so to give some examples, if you have a restaurant operation that had indoor dining capacity restrictions, if you had a retail operation where you had capacity restrictions or social distancing requirements, so you had to limit the public being able to come into your business. If you're a dentist and you are required to only operate, 4 chairs out of 10 chairs in your office because of social distancing requirements from a government state order, things like that, and usually it's kind of very industry specific. Um,
Yeah.
that can be a pathway as well. And so if you haven't had that conversation with a tax professional around like what was going on with you and what were you forced to do, how were you forced to change, um, that's a main pathway for the eligibility. So a lot of people, it's not everybody qualifies for this. It's really idiosyncratic to your business and what you experienced during the pandemic. But for businesses that do, it can very easily rack up to a 6-figure tax credit depending on how many employees you have. So it's well worth spending an hour or two talking to a couple providers and seeing if it's actually going to work for you.
Yeah. So talk about the process. How long does this take? What kind of stuff does a business need to provide you as an
Mm-hmm.
expert? I mean, they may already have a CPA. They may have already, started be down the path of, end of year buttoning things down
Yeah.
financially and getting their tax stuff in order. Most businesses that are proactive are starting to kind of wrap up the books here. We're just waiting on the final fourth quarter numbers to come in.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the process like? How long does it take to go through this? How many reams of paper do people have to fill out to figure this out, or is this easy? Or somebody like you can take this and knock this out in a couple hours. What's the degree of difficulty with this?
Yeah, I'd say on the business owner side, working with I can't speak to what it's like working with other providers, but for us, it's usually about an hour or two time commitment from the business owner or their accounting staff to get us the information we need to do our work.
Yeah.
So it's usually about an hour or 2 hours. It's things like payroll reports and profit and loss statements and uh, PPP forgiveness applications and just questions to make sure that we're not missing any of the complexities in the case, because it's surprising, like these credits, they just get really complicated really quickly if you've got like family ownership structures and things like that going on. But that's about the timeline for them. And then once we have documents, it takes us around 2 weeks to turn a claim around. I know for a lot of providers where they haven't built their own software and their own things, it can take them a lot longer than that. But usually for us, it's about a 2-week turnaround time. And then once we do the filing with the IRS, that's where the real weight is.
Hmm.
For smaller claims, it's about 3 to 4 months is what we're currently seeing. That can change at any moment, obviously, because the IRS, they have their own ways of doing things. For larger claims, it's a lot longer. But that's really the wait time is the IRS processing, which, 3 to 4 months, it sounds like a lot, but it was a lot longer over the summer when we were doing these. So it's, that's kind of the time frame involved.
All right. Now, you guys, since you're experts at this, I believe you guys have some proprietary processes and systems and automation that
Mm-hmm.
you've developed to really laser in on this. It sounds like um, you're able to leverage that to do this very efficiently and easily, taking the burden off of the businesses.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, we've spent a lot of time on that because early on when this program was rolled out, the key issue with tax credit work is quality control and making sure
Yeah.
that when things are going out, we're building each case as an audit file so that in the event that there's some kind of inspection, which we're expecting a lot of IRS activity in this space, it's just really easy for us to negotiate with the IRS and get the claims, cleared and that sort of thing. And so we've very early on, we developed a lot of our own tools and software and systems and that sort of thing to build those efficiencies because I'm a very process oriented person and I enjoy the technology integrations. I'm known to use a lot of Zapier. I realized, that's going to be the core bottleneck problem with this program is quality control and making sure that everything comes out, to the level of quality that it should be to be able to pass audit. And so that's how we built everything. And then also to be, efficient with the data processing, et cetera, because to do these claims correctly, it's usually easy for the business owner to get us the data that we need, but there's a lot of data manipulation that has to happen to really
Hmm.
maximize all the allocations that go into it. So um, that's how we built it because I really see it's my opinion as a tax professional that if I'm not maximizing somebody's credit to the legal extent we're allowed to, I'm doing them a disservice. Like I haven't done my job if I'm not getting the most that they could get just because I was too lazy to build out the tools to be able to do more complex allocations, like things like
Right.
that. So that was really our emphasis early on. And so now it's a very efficient, clean process for people who work with us because of that.
Yeah, and I think that's every business leader's nightmare is to find out through through the government channels. Hey, you're being audited, or hey, you missed out on opportunities
Yeah.
that
Well,
you could.
they don't usually reach out to tell you that they owe you some money. That doesn't
Well,
usually happen.
true. That they don't typically reach out to tell you they owe you more money. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But business leaders talk, right? That's what
Hmm.
entrepreneurs do. They talk, they network, they drink coffee at the coffee shops together and talk about things. And one of them talks about a credit, the other one doesn't talk about the credit, and they start comparing notes and like, hey, wait a minute, I should have
Hmm.
gotten this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
then they come to find out their tax preparer didn't do something right. And
Hmm.
that there's nothing that will get under the skin of an entrepreneur more than to realize that their paperwork and their
Yeah.
tax stuff wasn't done
Yeah.
as well as it could have been done, one way or the other. Whether they should be receiving something, in the form of a credit, or they missed something and they owe more money, and they found out after the fact, right? That's very, very frustrating. So, how do you typically work with folks? Because you're not a come one, come all kind of a CPA firm where you do everybody's stuff for them. You're not a generalist type of CPA firm. So, do you work with CPA firms hand in hand on this particular aspect of this, or not?
Yeah. So we're basically kind of the majority of our work comes from other CPAs. So we kind of plug in as their third party, processor, like their ERC department effectively for a lot of smaller practices that don't have like an internal department dealing with it. So we play really nicely with existing tax professionals um, because that's who we are. So it's, we kind of speak the same language And that's where a
You're not
lot of our work.
competing with them either, right?
No, because it's, where I'm just here to get the credit work done, get in, get out, and then make sure, because too, just, it's an important caveat with this program that people understand. Unlike with the PPP, where there wasn't a lot of interaction with your income tax situation, um, this tax credit does interact with your income taxes in a really significant way. And so, me as the outside claim provider, I have to make sure that the existing tax professional knows what needs to happen there. Also, that you as the business owner understands that the relationship of how those things work together, for your situation and that sort of thing. And so we have to work with the existing tax pro to get the job done right.
Yeah.
And so it's that's usually where where most of our work comes from, is from other tax professionals. It's funny, like half of
Interesting.
the time when I work with a client and then I work with their CPA, if I, found the client they found me through a podcast or something. And then I work with the tax pro, they're like, oh, great, you do these and you're not like a crazy person. Like, let me send you some more. That's usually how it goes, because there's so few people in this space. There's been my experience that there's a lot of people that know their clients need this, know they can't do it. And then, but just how do you find somebody who's credible, who can do the work correctly, that you can trust? Because
Right.
there's just a lot of bad actors in the space. It's like a Wild West situation. That's all going to come home to roost in a couple years once the IRS gets around to auditing these. So
That's really cool. As an entrepreneur myself, I'm sitting here thinking about, what you're describing as your business model and how you do things. And in my mind, it's just kind of, we'll probably have to have a separate conversation on that, because I've got some thoughts and ideas about how you can potentially take that and do some different things with it as well. But I kind of liken it to, if you've got something wrong with your body, right? You go to the doctor, you see your primary care physician or somebody like that, and then hey, a few years ago I had an issue with my shoulder, went to my primary care doctor, they did some tests and x-rays, blah blah blah, the standard stuff, and they're like, yep, you need to go see a specialist, right? They've got that like trusted relationship there,
mm-hmm.
where I'm still part of that. They're all working towards me, being my best from a human body functional perspective. But you do what you do, and then I'm going to refer you to the specialist. And in this case it was an orthopedic specialist. For you guys, you've got people that are doing people's taxes for them and taking care of their bookkeeping and
Mm-hmm.
standard accounting and finance functions. But there's this whole specialty space where you guys are the experts that can really take them farther and deeper into things that's going to be a huge value to them. I think that's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. And I know for me, a big piece when I started the firm was, I read the book, The E-Myth, and that really changed my mind around a lot of things about like how I saw typical firm culture running. And, once you start to get into, okay, I'm an entrepreneur first and a tax practitioner second, what does that look like? And really spending more time into, where do I see the biggest pain points? Where do I see the place where I can provide the most value with the knowledge that I have? And where can I develop my company and myself to fix the biggest, to put out the biggest fires for people? Like, what is that? And this program it was like a bullseye of a situation for that, because it's like you've got tax practitioners who are too busy because they've got so much recurring work that they just can't handle an idiosyncratic program like this. And then they're leaning on payroll providers, where payroll providers are not, seasoned in a complex one-time tax credit. And
Yeah.
so now you've got business owners that have just fallen through the cracks. They've fallen in the middle, and they're either getting underserved or not served, or getting approached by these companies that are really flashy and are having bad work done and they don't know. And it's, that's where we saw the opportunity, my partner and we saw the results we could get for people. And it just kind of turned into a perfect storm of, really, I find it really fulfilling, because it's like I'm actually helping people and I'm moving the needle forward in their business. Like, this isn't just a filling out form situation.
Right.
It's really, for a lot of businesses, it's life-changing money. because I do a lot of this work for like restaurants. They're very highly affected, and it's life-changing money for them. And like being able to be the person that facilitates that, I find it really, really gratifying. It's just a wonderful place to be. So I'm grateful, that we're able to do this work for people, and um, that they're able to take advantage of this program. Because I always tell people, you're going to pay the taxes either way. So when something like this comes out, if you don't get in line, it's like, you're going to have to pay for it anyway. That's how things go in tax world. So it's a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, though, the government and all the things that this country does across the board, it all comes down to citizens' money anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're out there making the money, working hard, whether you're a business owner or employee or somewhere in between. At the end of the day, it's people, citizens, individuals going out there doing whatever they do. They make money, and then they give a portion of that money to the government to, provide safety, security, all the things that we need to live the American dream of peace, prosperity, success, all of those things. And so, you know, this is really about during these times, and we have seen some kind of proportional epic things here in our country in the past few years, where these are opportunities where who's the best person to hold on to the money? Should it be the government holding on to everybody's money and figuring out what to do with it during a time of un, a non-normal time? Or is it better suited in the hands of the people that need to pay for important things they need to pay for, or to help people out there in ways they want to help them through their business or their products or their services? There's a story. I live in Louisville, Kentucky. There's a story of a company called Wicked Sheets, and they make bed linen for like hotels and just different retailers and things out there. And during the pandemic, the hospitality industry kind of slowed down, kind of to a
Yeah.
grind, and they took a beating. And so, yeah, it affected their business, but they had a really amazing American spirit about them, in that they said, well, you know what, we're really, really good at making big squares of fabric. What if we cut them down into small little squares and called them a mask and got those out to people? How can we make a difference there? And their business kind of blossomed out of that
Mm-hmm.
during this kind of pandemic. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of good ideas. One interesting thing the pandemic taught us, or at least it should have taught us, is you can't the world moves too fast and we're too vulnerable to disruption, right? At the end of the day, yes, COVID, ended people's lives. It hurt people. It disconnected our families. I mean, it did some horrific things. But at the end of the day, COVID was a major, major life and economic disruptor, right?
Mm-hmm.
It disrupted things just like a natural disaster would disrupt things, or some kind of economic meltdown, like when Japan's nuclear reactor melted down, right? I mean, anything happens in the world, because the economy and the world we live in is all connected and interdependent upon each other. It's a global economy. Anything that happens in the world will affect us here, and things that happen here affect other people in other places. And so what it, I think, is challenged us to do is to think a little bit differently about what we do and how we do it, and more importantly, why we do that, to contribute to the world differently and to think differently in mitigating these types of things. Because COVID is a disruption, but we're going to have plenty of disruptions in this fast-paced, chaotic world we live in that's continuing to move faster and faster. This is a really good lesson there. And I'm just so thankful for folks like you that are open and honest and transparent about what you do, that love what you do. One thing that I got out of today's session is the why, the
Yeah.
passion and the underlining joy you get out
Mm-hmm.
of being the expert at doing what you do. And I can imagine you are significantly changing people's lives in many, many ways, giving them hope. I mean, this is a time where people need hope. They need reassurance. They need kind of a bright light at the end of the tunnel to shine in and say, yes, keep going. You're going the right direction. And you're giving them those types of things through the work that you do. As we kind of wrap up today, Catherine, what are the top three most important things you'd like to leave with people as takeaways on this important work you're doing and continuing to do for folks?
Yeah, so I would say, the first piece is that if you haven't done this program or you're thinking about it or you're not sure, um, visit our website, get that PDF. It's the For Business Owners Top 5 ERC Mistakes. It gives the main issues that I see people hit with the program. The second piece is if you'd like an assessment done, that's something we just do as a complimentary offering to people, because I don't want somebody to not do this program because they think they might not be eligible for it. Usually within the first 5 minutes of talking to somebody, I have a pretty strong sense of whether it's going to work. um, if you'd like an assessment done for your company, that's something, visit our website. There's a little tool that says see if I qualify. You just click that. It's like 3 or 4 questions that are kind of the main initial questions we ask, and then we'll get you connected with myself or my partner Skylar or one of our other tax practitioners to do the assessment for you. And then the third takeaway, I would say maybe just in general, because I just enjoyed this conversation. But I think as a business owner, you're always having to think through, okay, where are the places where I can get the best ROI for my time, the best ROI for my effort. This program is definitely one of those, because it's just for 1 or 2 hours of your time, you could be looking at potentially like a 6-figure check back. So that's one of those things where, since you're always looking for ways to maximize your time and effort, I think income tax planning and tax credits in particular, business owners always think, oh, I'm going to get to it later. I'll get to it later. I don't want to deal with it. It's out of my daily routine. It's out of the whirlwind of my daily activities. And I think for most business owners, like if you haven't looked at this credit program, if you haven't done a general survey of tax credits your company could be eligible for, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. So it's worth just looking into in general for your business. Are there incentives out there for you? Because I see, a lot of the people that I work with, they don't take advantage of the worker opportunity tax credit. And that's, a recurring tax credit that comes out every year. A lot of people haven't even heard of it. The R&D tax credit, really popular. A lot of people don't
Yep.
take advantage of it. So it's one of those things where you always want to kind of look for where you're going to have the most ROI for your time, and tax credits and tax planning is a place where, for a couple hours of your time and then getting connected with the right practitioner for it, you could be looking at, pretty good return on that level of effort. So that would kind of be the third takeaway, just in general.
Okay. Excellent. Is there for the current, things always change with the government. With the current employee retention program that's going on right now, is there a time limit on that people need to be aware of completing the work, turning it in, filing, and all those things?
Yeah, so it's going to start phasing out next year. So not this coming April, but the April after that, it's going to start to phase out. I would say don't wait that long if you think you could be eligible for it. A lot of the reports and things that we need, if you wait another year, some of those things might not be available from your payroll providers. Like, you never know when you're going to all of a sudden, oh, I need this one really specific report from ADP, but we changed 2 years ago and they've deleted it out of their backlog, things like that. So you just want to
Yep.
make sure that you deal with it as soon as you can, because some of the things that, a provider for the tax credit's going to need, you might not have access to anymore if you wait and have a system change or things like that. And then the other piece of it too, is if you think you're going to be getting potentially a 6-figure check back, why sit on that for 6 months and then have to sit on it for another 3 months at the IRS?
Yep.
It's like, just block out the time on your calendar, book the phone call, have your bookkeeper or CFO collect the reports and, just kind of get it done. Cause it's, it's why wait on it? It's like time value of money. It's like money today is much more valuable than money 6 months from now, especially with the current inflation rates. It's like time value of money is more true
No
now than
kidding.
ever. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing, folks, you don't procrastinate. This is opportunities, programs built specifically to help America recover, help you as an individual, help you as a business person, specifically that's providing jobs and things to the greater good of our society that we live in. There's zero need to procrastinate and wait to do this and wait for the stars to align and wait for somebody to do something. um, get the assessment. If you have any questions, get the assessment. Catherine, do you guys charge people for consultations to look at their stuff and see if they
No.
qualify and kind of give people options?
Yeah, so we do that assessment as a complimentary thing just because, as long as people are comfortable with working with us, I'd rather me take the risk as a practitioner to have it not work out for somebody than have them pay me for work that they can't use.
Excellent.
So that's the approach we take. Because, like I said, usually within the first 5 minutes of talking to somebody, once I know their industry and like a general sense of what was going on and maybe see some reports, I can tell almost immediately whether or not it's going to be a viable program for them. So, we don't charge anything for that just because it's usually at least that initial piece of it of, is this program going to work? Roughly, what are you looking at for credit? That's something that's not too hard for us to produce.
Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you for doing that. Not everybody provides, free evaluations and things. And so, you and your folks at your firm have really made this easy. It's obviously you got the tools and the resources there, but you make it really easy on the people where all they have
Mm-hmm.
to do, there's no excuses really.
Yeah.
If you own a business today and you haven't taken advantage of not only the employee retention credit, but any credits that are out there, and there's a lot of them out there. It's kind of like college scholarships and grants and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
had no
Yep.
idea about these things until I started going down this path, and it was a whole new world of stuff I never even knew existed. And got to take advantage of many, many programs, right? So if you're a business owner, um, there's no excuse. Catherine and her team offer free consultations to look at this. They have assessments, they have evaluations, they have ways to help you and serve you in ways you've never been served. You've got an opportunity to improve your business and start off 2023 on a much brighter note than in previous years. So I would highly recommend you get with Catherine and the folks at her firm to take a look at your stuff and see what you may qualify for. I guarantee you'll probably be surprised. Most people are when they go through these types of things. Catherine, how do people connect with you if they want to learn more, if they want a free consultation or an evaluation type of thing? How do they connect with you? What's the best way for people to start this process if they want to talk with you?
Yeah. So if you visit our website, it's dominiones.com. I'm sure it'll appear somewhere on the screen that you're engaging with this on.
Yep.
There's a button right at the top of the website that's the like see if I qualify tool. And it just asks you a couple questions and it gets, collects your email and stuff so we can contact you. And then we'll just reach out and schedule a phone call if it seems like on the face of it, your company looks like that they're eligible for it. So it's just as simple as that. Usually takes a minute to just fill in a couple of questions for us, and then we'll engage from there and get a call scheduled with one of the tax practitioners here, and then get the process started and make sure I usually tell people a big part of my process is making sure people understand as much as they want to understand about the credit, because some people are like, I don't want to know anything, like just tell me where I need to sign. Other people, they want to know a lot. So that's the initial phone call we do, is just making sure you understand everything you want to understand about it. And then that you understand some of the interactions and complications that can come up with the process, what's up with the IRS and those kinds of situations. So that's where we usually get started with people, is that first phone call.
That's awesome. So easy, so simple, and it's free. And in this day and time, I don't think there's anything else out there better than that. So thank you so much for being on the show. Again, folks, if you have any questions, concerns, you can also go in the show notes. We're going to have Catherine's contact information in there, as well as our normal email for you. You can email us questions or thoughts or follow-ups. And if you want to learn and reach out to us even more than that, then you can also go to soarhaircoaching.com. What a great episode. Thank you so much, Catherine, for being on the show. Thank you for all the things you do to really help people and just make a big difference in their life and educate them and inform them on the things that they've rightly deserve and work hard for. So thank you for all that you do. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one.